Welcome back to the racing capital of the world, to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And what a qualifying weekend it was. Headlines written both on and off the track, and we will bring you up to speed with all of those. The main headline, of course, Robert Shwartzman and Prema Racing on pole in the 109 years of this race. A rookie with a new team has never been on the pole. Never. You could say 1911 for the first race, but they didn't qualify back then, and everyone was a rookie, so it doesn't really count. What a day. What an achievement.
It was sensational. Rookie driver, as you said, rookie team personnel, engineers, the whole thing start to finish just left us breathless at the achievement. We know how hard it is to go fast in qualifying at Indianapolis, how far in advance you have to start the process, how much experience seemingly you will need to pull that off, and they just did it in spectacular fashion.
There were positive stories. There were some more complicated stories yesterday as well. Let's take a little look at what happened on Sunday here at the Speedway.
And it started first thing in the morning in practice, pre-qualifying. Scott McLaughlin, one of the favorites for pole, defending pole winner at this race last year. Massive shunt in turn 2, completely destroyed his primary race car.
And then things got pretty dramatic on pit lane during top 12 qualifying as Team Penske frantically tried to make changes to their rear wing attenuator after a series of controversial activities on pit lane. But for the last chance qualifier, Will, this got wild as well.
It really did. Rinus VeeKay withdrew his time, went slower, but his teammate Jacob Abel was not able to make the field of 33. An awful position to be in. Teammate knocking out teammate. And then we got the run for the Fast Six, and what a run it was from the rookie, from the new team, Robert Shwartzman. Just an incredible result for everybody there at Prema, because it's not been an easy season for them. It's his first time ever on an oval, of course his first time here at Indianapolis, and he starts from the pole. Right, let's get into the deep dive stuff, guys, because Penske, their two cars for the 12 and the 2 were found with that modification on the attenuator. They were withdrawn from top 12 qualifying, and we've heard this morning with breaking news that those 2 cars have been removed from the top 12 and put all the way to the back of the field. They will start 32nd and 33rd, confirmed by IndyCar president Doug Boles this morning.
We have decided to move the 2 and the 12 car to the back of the grid. They will start in 32nd and 33rd position. The 2 car first are in 32nd, and the 12 car in 33rd based on their qualifying times. The 3 car attenuator from the crash with the crashed wing still attached to it was provided to us, and we still have it. That attenuator was not modified at all.
So Will Power and Josef Newgarden to the rear of the field. The teams have been fined $100,000. Their strategists, Rzuski and Cindric, have been suspended for the 2nd year in a row for the Indy 500. The teams forfeited their qualifying championship points. James Townsend, this really shows the gravity of just what Penske did that was so egregious to the rule today. This is where we see what everybody's got for the Indy 500.
We got Yellow's out in a cross crashing. Rasmussen. 2nd time he's lost it this week off of turn 2. The first time, light contact. Now a little bit heavier. The right rear damaged.
I feel like the yellow came out almost before that happened. Was that caused by a checkup and the yellow was for something else?
Or he was spinning. Or he was spinning earlier and we just saw the tail end of it. We'll find out as we look back. But that yellow was out for quite a while.
There he is.
Man, this is exactly what happened.
Oh, there it is. It's because he got up in the wall. The yellow would have come out there. You see the yellow board on the side of the track right there.
He's got a right rear toe link broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually did pretty well to save it, because we've seen drivers throughout this week lose the rear through the corners and be unable to pull it back. Has the one wobble, has the second, slides it, holds it into the wall, and then, as you say, that toe link gone.
But huge credit to IndyCar for catching that and immediately having the yellow was out by the time the camera panned around the other direction. Here's on board with Marcus Ericsson, who was just behind him. There's the hit. Yellow's already out. You see it on the dash of Ericsson.
Get high, get high, get high, get high, get high, get high, way high, drive hard.
The spotter trying to help coach the driver through the incident.
Curious, what's down low on the racetrack that caused
I think it's the
Rasmussen here to bunny hop?
I think the tire folded under.
Oh, it did, yeah. But you know what? Watch this hit. Perfectly square on the attenuator only, maybe the left rear touch. But it's the second time for Rasmussen that he escapes largely unscathed off of turn 2. I mean, to do it once is super rare. Twice now with just minimal damage, almost unheard of here.
I'm really impressed with that save, because we've seen some big accidents this week with guys who've started to lose the rear, and it's just gone on them. For him to be able to hold that once and then hold that second slide and just nudge the wall, that was an impressive save from Rasmussen.
And Kyle Larson made it back to the Indianapolis area just earlier this morning as he raced his full-time job in the NASCAR Cup Series, the All-Star race, just yesterday. Kyle needing these laps today, and I just talked to the team. I said, what is the biggest box to check off today? And they said to get our downforce dialed in. They believe the conditions today are going to be similar to race day, and that's something they are really trying to work through in this hour and 41-minute session left.
Which is such a different deal. It could be so difficult. And we're just taking a look here of when Larson came out, tried to join in the middle of the pack, and you sort of see seamlessly blends in there right behind the McLaren of Lundgaard.
Perfect.
Still about 50 miles an hour lower than the other guys are going. So you see, I think as Daly behind him has to pop out.
Listen, you have nowhere else to go but the low line where everybody moves down, chasing the draft ahead.
And watch this. This is an unheard of thing here. Very rare thing. A pass into two on the short shoots. I saw him do it to Rossi. I saw him do it again to Connor, the next car up. Rossi gets checked up a little bit with the cars in front through turn 1, has to lift. Kyle timed this one perfectly, Townsend. This is not a typical pass, but really, really bold and heads up.
Yeah, listen, it happens plenty on race day in the checkup. But for Monday practice, you don't see a lot of it, as you can hear Rossi hunting on the throttle and probably thinking to himself, wait, what? You're going to go for it in the short shoot? That kind of sets the tone for what to expect for race day. All etiquette seemingly out the window at this point as Jack Harvey moves to the front in his number 24 Invest car.
Kevin, how are the Thirsty Threes feeling with what they've got in this backup car?
Yeah, you never know. You want to make sure it feels good, and the speed chart and the time doesn't always tell, but just the first few laps, he's only done 4 laps, he said car feels good. So I'm sure a sigh of relief for Scott McLaughlin that the backup car so far feels like the original. By the way, they have their race engine in. They went ahead and changed. The other Chevys have not. They will wait until after today and put them in before Carb Day on Friday. Remember, this is the opposite of what the Hondas have done. They put theirs in before the qualifying weekend.
Yeah, we were talking to McLaughlin yesterday, and he says, look, I'm gutted that I had an incident, destroyed my race car, the primary car that the team had put so much work in, but at the same time, if there's one team that you can have a healthy amount of confidence in to have a backup car, not just together, but up to speed as quickly as possible, and as you know, I have a car with as much speed in a backup, it's going to be this one.
Okay.
Back in Indianapolis, the right front of Robert Schwartzman, not looking very happy.
I got a feeling that one's not going back on the race car.
No, but this could be the first time that Robert Schwartzman has ever tried to brake in anger off a turn 4 at Indy and really try to experiment with where the limit is, and it is not easy, specifically because of how different the setup is for an oval over road course as the yellow comes out for track inspection. We'll take a closer look here in the side-by-side of an IndyCar road course configuration and super speedway. Massive difference on the back of the car with rear wing size, and then front. Look at the difference in main plane, end fences, and those upper elements on the left-hand side of a road course wing. But, James, the differentiation doesn't stop there.
No, that's the aerodynamic. Let's look at some of the mechanical ones. On a road course, the camber is the angle at which the tires are tilted in from the top. You see them both, we call it negative camber on a road course. On an oval, we only turn left and it's banked, so we take that left front and we add positive camber to it. So that means in the corner, more the contact patch is going to be on the racetrack, but when you're on a flat piece of racetrack, like coming to pit lane, you're driving on almost none of the tires. That's what caught out Robert Schwartzman, but again, these sorts of things you have to start getting through. You've got to minimize, actually, you've got to eliminate those mistakes before we get to race day.
Yeah, Scott Dixon's car is back in the garage now. They discovered some temperature warnings. You see Scott now posing with fans, signing autographs as he makes his way back here. They had some temperature warnings. So there is a hybrid error. They stop before there's any damage. They are assessing, no timetable yet, if this is a quick fix or if it might cause them to miss the entire session. They're hoping on the quick fix side.
Very much.
It's usually just the drivers in the pit stall, maybe before and behind you kind of thing. There's a small little realm that you sit in. VK there, late dive out on his former team boss, I believe. That was Ed Carpenter.
I think that was David Malukas also, and Kyle Kirkwood going too wide through turn one. So one of the fun parts about this practice, now that you know you're in the show, Will, it's a bit of carbon courage, let's call it, as 3 wide now down the back straightaway.
Palou from the Creed wagon, your pole sitter, and Will Power. Now, we've been talking about Robert Schwartzman as a rookie here at the Indy 500. He is on the pole, but he is learning his way. Has a little look to duck out from behind Sato, sees that Palou is there and blasting his way through. All of this crucial experience for the driver of the 83 Prema.
Look, it's going to be hectic on race day, especially during pit cycles. So all of these situations are going to be things that you experience on race day, cars blending in and out. So it's good lessons to learn. But, you know, look, we hadn't spent a lot of time focusing on the Prema cars in practice during race running. To be fair, you know, when we heard from Hunter-Reay, he's pitted right by them. He said, look, they actually spent a fair amount of the practice week already working on qualifying sims because they were a little bit worried about making the show at some point in this month. So this is probably one of the most, you know, times they've spent in race trim right in the thick of the action. And we're kind of getting our first look at how that car seems to be handling and how Schwartzman seems to be handling the situation.
So I think for Schwartzman, there's a laundry list of things for Prema Racing to start thinking about as a legitimate contender to win this race, to go try and win this race, as seemingly the entire field now is in one mad pack practicing for next Sunday.
This is great to see. It's getting me fired up.
Just about 7 cars not on track at the moment. Very, very busy racetrack here at IMS. In fact, they're moving around so much, it's almost hard to get a grasp of who's got pace out front or who doesn't, because no one's staying out front for more than half a lap.
And like we always talk about, you just don't know where people are on tires. Some people went out on new tires for this run, some people on old tires. How about the number 2, Josef Newgarden, once again passing with ease. And I can tell you, according to our Firestone data here, he has 10 laps on his tires. There are other cars like Nolan Siegel that have a lot more. Nolan Siegel shown at 21 laps on his tires. See Ryan Hunter-Reay making moves on Christian Lundgaard there. Level set on tires, these two cars. 6 laps for Hunter-Reay, and for Christian Lundgaard, 7 laps on his Firestone. So a pretty good apples to apples comparison right now for these two working together.
Yeah, I've been watching a little bit of this back and forth as Hunter-Reay dives into the pit lane there. He's running about 218-ish, plus or minus a few tenths of a mile an hour when he was out front. You can see this kind of front half of the field a little bit more spread out. Behind them, there's a train being led by Nolan Siegel, and that's got a much more packed up group behind him. Ed Carpenter, Callum Ilott, Felix Rosenquist a little bit further down. Let's be right on board now with the number 14 AJ Foyt machine, Santino Ferrucci. He is in this lead battle. That's Lundgaard, the white car up front. Rinus VK in between.
This is a really good angle if we stick here for a lap or two.
Now 5.
Because Santino Ferrucci has 23 laps on his tires. So let's just ride for a lap and listen how much harder it is on used rubber. This would be like the last five to go in a stint right now, Will. See that quarter span rear gurney across the rear wing, and James, just listening to the throttle, I'd be pretty encouraged if I was AJ Foyt Racing and Santino Ferrucci for the tire mileage that they're showing. 25 laps on the tires right now. That looks and sounds excellent.
It does look and sound pretty good. It's always hard to tell in these situations because sometimes drivers are lifting off to fall back. In this case, I think we heard Ferrucci into one lift off to stay behind Rinus VeeKay. Just wants to get that extra lap or two in the dirty air. That's now Newgarden behind Ferrucci. Both of them have passed the 18.
So Ferrucci leads the group. Newgarden 18 laps on his tires.
So
so
clear to the bottom.
That basically completes a stint or almost a full stint for Santino Ferrucci, and that's one I'll circle to definitely have an eye on for race day. We talked about the Chip Ganassi number 9 of Scott Dixon going back to Gasoline Alley early. Let's check in with Kevin Lee for an update.
So still in the turn 1 spotter stand, but I have received information that we are not expecting Dixon back out in the final 50 minutes or so of this session. They got some things done, but I know there were still 2 or 3 more things they wanted to tick off their list. They had an hybrid issue, so they took it back because the temperature warnings were coming up in their telemetry. So no more Scott Dixon, it looks like today.
Let's watch the Pennzoil onboard here of Scott McLaughlin, because he has 25 laps on his tires. So another situation where we're looking at end of stint. This would be to complete lap 26. Does he pit? Because it sounds awfully difficult to hang on here. He's quite a ways back of the car in front. Let's ride for a lap now and compare this to Ferrucci, who we saw earlier.
Copy, you got one more lap of fuel left. Your right side, he's there. Clear behind him.
Some high percentage decisions being made right now for McLaughlin, knowing he's only got a lap of fuel left, that those tires are worn. But I'm kind of with you. He was a little bit further back from that train in front, and most of the cars in front seem to be able to run a little bit closer to each other in the corners. And Malukas, who was right in front of him, on very similar length tires.
Yeah, I think Ferrucci, there goes Santino Ferrucci, who probably has fresh rubber on. He does. 8 laps on Ferrucci's tires. But apples to apples, give me Santino Ferrucci's
On this lap off turn 4.
balance and performance as Kyle Moyer calls McLaughlin to pit lane. And Will, a really great read for us, because if McLaughlin's out of fuel with a lot of lifting in the corners, this gives us an idea that a full stint is right at 28 laps for the race, unless you're doing mad fuel save early on, because James, they probably would have filled up McLaughlin and put new tires on. That would certainly be my speculation. McLaughlin to pit lane. Braking looks just right. Ferrucci making another move.
It's getting dicey. Sato out of the pits. Simpson moves to pass, and Rossi goes around the side of him. Riding on board with Rossi. Here's his
Low
view.
and slow, room to move behind here.
Nice little draft up on the 8.
Cleared.
No surprise to see Alexander Rossi right in the mix. Has such an excellent record here. Basically, since the day he showed up, he's been fierce.
Things happen, especially in pit lanes. We see a little replay here. Newgarden, that's Andretti on the inside. Rahal nearly the meat in the sandwich, and Newgarden just muscling his way by. He loves an outside move, does Joe New.
Around the outside of 1, there's Ray. Ooh, that's squeezy.
Oh my goodness, that could have been a big one.
Committed, though. That's the kind of decisive thing you need to do if you're in that position.
And a great example of how much you rely on your spotter. Had the spotter not picked that up, that almost certainly would have been contact. Yeah, watching Robert Schwartzman right now, James, I really think that they should at least pull him back, let him drop back behind Hunter Ray, maybe Kyle Larson there. I know you want to lead, but you also want to expect that you're going to get past as Schwartzman does. And look at how far he drops back.
Yeah,
big lift there. That's not ideal.
That's not a guy that's super comfortable with falling back in line behind a car. And that's just one car, T-Bell. It's almost best case scenario as Larson now looks to line him up.
Yeah, it's going to get really difficult for Schwartzman. And he now leans into the throttle, but here comes Larson on the pole sitter. Whoa, that was late.
And that's what you're going to see in the race. That was great experience for both those guys.
Kevin down on pit lane.
So when we talk about Robert Schwartzman, as he told us yesterday, hey, I may be fast, but I still have a lot to learn, as he goes back around for a position to lead this pack. This is all new. Oval racing is brand new, but he has a lot of help. We heard from Ryan Briscoe. One of the people on his spotter stand, Hinch is very familiar with. Robert Gouet has been in the paddock for many years with Mick Peterson, Errol McLaren. He is the strategist. He is also an engineer. And then also opposite Robert is his new engineer just for the month of May. You wonder, how did they get better? Well, it's certainly more than just one person, but Eric likely has a lot to do with that. He was Josef Newgarden's engineer at Team Penske in 2022 when they finished second in the championship. Before that, he worked with Pratt Miller on the engine side of things. This is a month of May only deal for Likely, at least for now, because he has another job. He works at SpaceX, so they're really smart people down there in that Prema camp, helping them go fast in their very first oval experience.
It's indicating there that he'll be coming to pit lane.
Side by side in 3. Newgarden to the bottom, Palou on top. Backing out of it, getting back in line. That was pretty spicy. Castro Neves behind that battle. And this is what it comes down to, guys. So often in the race, you know, you heard drivers talk about how difficult it is to pass here. We see Rosenquist making a move on his team boss. But you do so much of your work. You get so many of your positions through other people making mistakes. It's about being patient, watching it unfold in front of you. And the aero percentage that wing has over another is now Daly makes a move on VK. Daly making some good moves out on the racetrack.
And he's had good pace today as well, just down to P8 at the moment, Connor Daly, but he's been looking pretty racy out there. As we drop back to Marcus Ericsson, courtesy of Allegra. Let's see how the steering inputs change, how different they are on board the Andretti as opposed to being on board the Penske.
You can already see the difference in steering wheel construction and layout.
Steering wheel looks bigger to me too. Does it look like a slightly bigger diameter?
Could be. I know there are multiple options. I think we maybe saw him hit that WJ button with his left thumb. That's left weight jacker, trying to add a little bit of weight across the front axle to the left side. That's trying to search for more front grip, which is pretty common when you're this far back in a train of cars. He's going to try to get as low as he can behind Scott McLaughlin, try to get that left side of his wing, a little bit of clean air through 4.
Half stint on Ericsson's tires, showing 16 on our data.
Pit.
Gets the call to pit. We'll jump in next time round.
Hearing Kyle Larson might have been off track. Is that possible? He spends a lot of time on the dirt, but he is on the dust, and he is dangerously low to that apex curb as he powers past his teammate Christian Lundgaard. But James, you can get close, but you do not want to touch those bad boys.
What I would love to see is Newgarden do this entire lap out front, not fall back as Rossi makes a move on the inside of Devlin DiFrancesco. That was a good move. Dev was in the draft. Just breathe the throttle a little bit to try and give himself the room he wanted behind Newgarden. Rossi took that opportunity to show him the savviness of Rossi.
As we'll ride on board for Will Power. No lockup in the brake zone. Perfectly timed. Nice and calm.
Watch yourself here. Got some cars doing stops, Will.
But this is what it looks like when you're the driver on the team that has won more pit stop competitions than anybody. There goes DiFrancesco.
Guys, 3, 2, 1 on the mark.
You hear on the mark. The driver plays just as big a part in this stop being smooth.
Now, to be fair, there was a slight bobble in placing the left front, but it really didn't hold them up at all.
As the checkered flag falls on our 2-hour practice on Monday, 2 hours of track time left, Will, before these cars roll out onto the grid and these drivers suit up for the biggest race of the year.
And interestingly, given the headlines, given the stories rolling in today, who ran the most laps today? Will Power, Josef Newgarden.
One more shot for the 83 team. Hot tires coming in. We'll see if they practice again or decide to head to the lounge. They're practicing. Better position from Schwartzman. Air jack guy missed the grab on the right rear. So little bobbles there. Lot to clean up, lot to work with, but they have the data, they have video now to study, and they can go to work.
And critically, they have time. They have time. Palou, then, your fastest driver of practice, back to where we've been used to seeing him pretty much all week. Then Elio Castroneves going for his 5th. Takuma Sato going for his 3rd. Jack Harvey and Ryan Hunter-Ray. Siegel, Power, Newgarden, Rasmussen, who had a crash, and Connor Daly.